This is Jordan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and tonight I'm joined by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. How we doing?
I'm doing all right, man. It's throwing me off a little bit doing a Tuesday show, but it's well worth it, and we'll get right to that here in a second as to why it's well worth it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a little bit different. I've been told that we have some competition for live streaming tonight. There might be some other event going on in the world.
I have no idea
what that is. We're here to talk football. So tonight, for anyone who isn't familiar, we are bringing on a very special guest tonight. You may know him from the Mad Dog Sports Radio on Sirius Radio, the voice of the Raiders, author of The Handoff, the JT and Looney podcast on the Believe Network. Our man, JT the Brick. How we doing?
Great, guys. Thrilled to be on. How are you?
Wonderful. I can't lie. You have an impressive resume, but it is an honor to meet the very first Smack Off champ. It's something that I'm sure you've heard once or twice before, but just amazing to have you on here and appreciate you giving us some time tonight.
Yeah, that comes up from time to time. It all started that way on the Smack Off with Jim Rome. I'm real proud of that, and it opened up a big door in my life, and it now finds me in Las Vegas where the Raiders are hosting the Bills in the second ever game at Allegiant Stadium in week 4 of the NFL with a 2-1 team versus your 3-0 Buffalo Bills. So it's a pretty big one, guys.
Yeah, we'll dive right into it. I mean, honestly, it's been exciting, and we were obviously rooting for you last week. We were looking for it, and I thought for a while there that you had that chance to kind of get the double tap going into halftime and coming out with the field goal, and missing that field goal seemed like a big momentum swing there coming out of the first half. What were your thoughts in just the way that game got away from a little bit at the end after really hanging there shot for shot with the Patriots?
Yeah, it was a huge loss because they stopped them on their first 4 starts of the game. Cam went 3 and out 4 times, and the Raiders have a really good offense and should have been able to put points on the board. The field goal missed, the Josh Jacobs fumble, which wasn't a fumble. He recovered it, but the refs in Foxborough, the history with the tuck rule and the Raiders, so they weren't expecting anything in return. But they give up 250 yards rushing. I mean, that is unacceptable. They got run over by Burkhead. They got destroyed in the second half. And look, everybody has injuries. We know everybody's dealing with injuries, but the Raiders all of a sudden are just in the throes of a moment in time with this young team is decimated. They don't have Trent Brown, their Pro Bowl right tackle. They don't have Richie Incognito, a guy who's been in the Pro Bowl and played really well for the Raiders.
Right.
You know that story in Buffalo. Henry Ruggs III didn't play in that game. Nick Kwiatkowski, the linebacker they brought in from Chicago to be really the captain of their defense, the guy to call the plays, he's out. Damon Arnett, their first-round pick, could be out for a while. He hurt his thumb in a bad way. So the Raiders not making excuses heading into this game against the Bills, but the injuries, I think, was the big reason they didn't win that game, and just things started to unravel.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious to see with the injuries that are there, and even looking on the defensive side of the ball, this offense for the Bills has been a surprise. And, even for the biggest Bills homers, I don't think anybody expected the start Josh Allen's put up here. But looking into it, Aaron and I were talking before the show, Mayock's eye for talent is right aligned with all the guys we love. Some of that homegrown talent, Max Crosby and Cleveland Farrell and Maurice Hurst. And then even in the back seven, Jonathan Abrams, some of the guys who, like you said, were supposed to be the feather in the cap and that final piece, Littleton and Malik Collins, have been a little disappointing so far. What are some of your thoughts on the way they tried to pepper in some veteran talent with, honestly, some really solid draft choices, and why that maybe hasn't netted out just yet?
Yeah, it has netted out, but it did not net out last game. So they went 2-0. They beat New Orleans. Those guys played reasonably well, but you're right about Malik Collins. He had an outstanding year with the Cowboys, and they brought in Rod Marinelli, their defensive line coach, who's one of the few Hall of Fame potential position coaches in NFL history. So they were really excited about that. Littleton is a concern on my radio shows, especially the local one I do in Vegas. There's been a lot of calls on how he hasn't woken up yet, and he's a big part about this game with Buffalo, because not only does he have to stop the run, but he's got to stop Josh Allen. I'm just blown away how Josh Allen's running the ball. I've already talked to John Gruden about it, and Cam Newton was this big, bad runner last week. Now you get a younger guy who's as big, if not stronger, younger, who's running unbelievable. So Littleton's going to have to play a big role if Josh Allen decides to tuck and run on 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, because he's really good at that.
Yeah, and kind of looking into the back seven, I was excited to actually get to see Damon Arnett, a big fan of Trayvon Mullen, and then I think Joyner's played well there. If now with the news coming out on Arnett, is it going to be Neville Lawson? Or who do you think is going to be the guy to step in for Arnett in that cornerback spot?
Yeah, well, Joyner's got to play more. Joyner can move to the outside. He can play inside. Robertson, who they drafted, is just a little bit too young there. You mentioned Lawson. They have guys, but they're just guys. They're not elite players, and that's what Mike Mayock has to do one more time. He's got to have one more draft, one more free agent class, and then I think the Raiders will be up to speed on the defensive side. But the guys they got to show up and play. I mean, they just got to play well. They did against Drew Brees, but as you know, New Orleans didn't have Michael Thomas in that game. So that was a big weapon that was out. And the Raiders played well, putting pressure on Drew Brees, and they kind of slowed down Alvin Kamara. Hey, guys, remember, the Raiders opened up against Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. Then they had Cam and Burkhead, who they couldn't stop. Now they run into an undefeated Buffalo team. And you think that's tough? Up next, Kansas City, Tom Brady. So the Raiders' schedule is brutal.
Yeah.
And here's the key to this live stream podcast. This is a must-win for the Raiders. If they beat the Bills at home game, Buffalo's never have been on this trip in their life.
Yeah.
They go to 3-1, and that's a pretty good start.
Huge
To the season. And then you look at their schedule, and they can manage it till their bye week and after the bye week. And then on the back end, they got Atlanta, Cleveland, the Jets, the Chargers twice. And then you're looking at a schedule, and maybe they can get hot. But a loss to Buffalo after a loss to New England, staring down Kansas City and Tampa Bay coming in on Sunday Night Football does not make this journey easy for the Silver and Black.
And that's great that you said that, because I saw that a little bit when I was looking at the Raiders here this week, early in the week as we're getting ready for the show. And I thought a lot of the times what I hate playing is a team that's more desperate. And you don't see that typically early in the season. You see it late in the season when teams are really hanging in for a playoff spot. But I agree with you 100% that I think it is a must win early here in the season for the Raiders, because the Bills have a little bit of leeway getting off that 3-0 start. It's not a must win for them, although Bills fans would love to have an additional win here to keep talking on Twitter. But I agree with you 100%. I think this game means more to the Raiders right now at this point in the season than it does to the Bills, with the couple games here behind it.
Yeah, what kills me about the Raiders now is that if they were completely healthy, 100%, and they were coming out of camp, there were no preseason games, they had Tyrell Williams as their number 2 receiver, gone for the year with a labrum, right? So they were going to start the season off, get this, with the best offensive line in football, or most accomplished. Rodney Hudson, Incognito Brown, Gabe Jackson, Colton Miller, a first-round pick. They were going to have Ruggs and Tyrell Williams as the 1-2. On the other side, Renfro. They bring in Nelson Aguilar. They have Darren Waller, Jason Witten, Josh Jacobs. Oh, my God. And then Derek Carr, who's a very good former Pro Bowler. You put that offense out on the field, I'll put it against any offense the entire year. Now you start Ruggs hurt, no Tyrell Williams, and now you look at 2 offensive linemen gone, and then the defense getting banged up. They have no excuses. They just have to find a way to keep it close against Buffalo, just like New Orleans. New Orleans, they went to halftime. It was manageable. They came out, dominated the game, and got a win. I see the same thing for the Raiders. They want to keep it manageable at the half, up 3, down 3, get to the fourth quarter at home, make a play, and get the hell out of there with the win. And it's going to be tough to do.
Now, let's talk about some of those offensive pieces, though, because you see the injuries at wide receiver, but I don't think that is a great plan of attack against the Bills defense anyway. I think that's been the strength of the Bills defense over the last few years, even though they struggled with that last week against the Rams. I really think the mode of attack against this Bills team, until the Bills prove otherwise, is to run the ball right up the middle on them. And even though you have some of the injuries at offensive line, I really like Josh Jacobs. What are you seeing as how they can attack when you watch the film or you check out this Buffalo team? Do you agree with me there that you think that they can really establish the run and kind of keep this defense on the field and wear them down, like you said, into that second half and in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, that's basically what their game plan is going to be until they get healthy. Against New Orleans, they didn't do that. In New Orleans, they went 5 wide, and they were great. And it was tough to guard them. In week 1, when they beat Carolina, Josh Jacobs had 3 touchdowns, and that was ball control. They have to play Kansas City ball control the following week. You just can't get into a shootout with Kansas City. You're dead. So with Buffalo, I'd like to see him throw it. I'd like to see him get Waller going again. He's a tough matchup. The Bills, as I'm doing my homework, are giving up a lot of points, a lot of yards in the second half of games. And if the Raiders want to attack, just pick your poison and get Waller going early. Hope that Ruggs can play, get him going. And then Josh Jacobs on 3rd and short can maybe move the chains. But they have some opportunities here because if they run it well, that'll be what they'll stick with. If they can't run it well, I'll take my shot with Carr. Guys, the story here is Carr. He's the story. You know the backstory that your quarterback looked up to Derek Carr. Went to Fresno State camp, looked up to him.
Yeah.
And Fresno State did nothing for him. Fresno State said, we don't have a scholarship for you. Get lost. He ends up going to Wyoming. No one knows who he is. And now he's playing better than Carr technically this year. Not by much. Carr's off to a good start. This is a motivational chip game for Josh Allen. I mean, he wants to beat the Carr family, the Fresno State family. This is a game that means something to him. So Carr better be ready, and Carr better have an explosive game because if Carr doesn't beat Mahomes, all right, we get it. But if you can't beat Josh Allen as Carr's in his prime, making all that money, playing at home in Vegas, this would be a loss that would really come back if he played poorly and say, come on, you got to beat this young quarterback who's kind of finding his way in this league. I think Josh Allen's a hell of a player. Buffalo's really excited, and I got Jim Kelly coming on with me later in the week. And the comparison I'll make is Jim Kelly came in a superstar, right? He came into the league as a star. You knew he was going to be great, and then he developed into a Hall of Famer. Now you got a quarterback who comes in Josh Allen. Okay, high draft pick, but people wondering, is he going to be the question long term? And now he's on the verge of being a star for a decade to come, and the Raiders will catch him early in his career at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, and they got to beat him early in his career because he's going to be harder to beat later in his career.
I want to get your opinion while I got you on here a little bit more about Carr, because I think there's a lot of maybe false narratives about him because he's been through this transition where he had some success with the Raiders early on. The roster kind of had a huge turnover. Things fell apart a little bit. He's been there through that. You don't often see a team stick through a quarterback through that. So I think some of the narrative about him is more the roster that's been around him, right? A bad offensive line, lack of weapons. And now that we're seeing that kind of back all come together, even though he's had some people injured this year, the guy's technically sound quarterback, right? I think there's a lot of narrative about him as being just this typical check down guy. But when you look at some of the film that he's got out there, it's not just all check downs. He just picks and chooses his spots a little bit better. He's got the arm.
2 huge bombs to Ruggs.
Yeah, he's got the arm to put it anywhere on the field. So what are some of the narratives that you hear covering the team? And can you kind of speak to if any of those narratives have validity?
Well, I think with Carr, it comes down to the fact when you put up 4,000 yards and 70% completion ratio, that's really good. This is his 3rd year in the Gruden system. He's had a bunch of coordinators. He started his career 0-10 on a pretty bad team. And he's been through a lot. The broken leg, broken ankle was devastating because he led that Raider team to the playoffs. He did. That was his team that went to the playoffs. And I think he would have won a playoff game or two, and he would have that checked off his resume. He doesn't have a playoff win. He's never played a playoff game, and he doesn't have a playoff win, and they're paying him a lot of money. And he does check down from time to time, and he does because it's a high-percentage play. I wish he would step up a little bit more in the pocket and wait for the play to develop downfield because he's got the arm to make any throw. Any throw out there like Aaron Rodgers or any quarterback, he's got that arm. And he's in the prime of his career. He's going to be judged by this season. If he's going to be the long-term quarterback, they brought in Marcus Mariota for a reason. Marcus is injured, so he's now coming off being injured. We'll see what happens down the road. But I'm a huge fan of Derek Carr. He's been through a lot. He's had so much turnover, so many injuries, and he gets up and continues to fight. He's the franchise quarterback. He's about to pass Ken Stabler. He broke all of Gannon's records. So if you look at the history of the Raiders, pretty impressive quarterback history. Tom Flores, who has great connections with Buffalo. Ken Stabler. Before that, Darryl LaMonica, the Mad Bomber, also has Buffalo roots back there. Rich Gannon, an MVP. And Carr is smashing through all those individual records, games played, yards, touchdowns. But guys, what's his signature win? His signature win was Monday Night Football against Drew Brees to open a stadium. That's his signature win. And now he's got to back it up against the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how tough this game is. And we were talking about a lot of fans had this game circled as kind of the guys' trip out to Vegas. And obviously a lot in the world changed since that moment. But I think this is really going to be a game between two potential playoff teams, two teams that could face each other again at the end of the season. A lot of other teams you've seen, Denver falling apart with injuries, the Chargers falling apart with injuries. I think that obviously Kansas City is their own animal, but being able to work ahead in what the Raiders have in front of them and what that division's shaping up for, I don't know that it's realistic to target a division win, but I think they're right there as one of the top wildcard teams and one of the top playoff teams. I know we can't ask you for a score prediction, but what kind of game are you expecting this weekend? Is it something that you think the Raiders are going in expecting to win, and what is something that you think might be a key takeaway for fans to watch for?
Yeah, I expect the Raiders to win the game because this is a game when it came out on the schedule. I thought it would be a bunch of Bills Mafia out here. It'd be a party. Bills would play great. They're very good. I only have great things to say about the Bills. Went to college in upstate New York at Geneseo State University.
Nice.
Went to a lot of Bills games. And I think this is going to be a close game. I'll give the advantage to the Raiders if they didn't have the injuries at home. Now they're an underdog at home, and they're going to have to play a great game to win. They're going to have to play a great game to win, to eke it out late. And then they're going to have to attack the rest of their schedule. But if they win, and we'll get this figured out a little bit better with the sound and my camera and all this, I'll come on with you, and we'll talk about the 3-1 Raiders and the 3-1 Bills. Deal?
We like it. Appreciate your time tonight, JT. Really means a lot to us. Hope we get to enjoy a really competitive, fun game this weekend.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you, man. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
So it's always fun to be able to talk to somebody who's gone in and spent that much time kind of talking through, being the voice of the Raiders and being able to be kind of one of the core people there in Vegas. I mean, he's one of the huge pieces to be able to
rolling that team out.
Yeah, bringing them into Las Vegas. That was a lot of fun to be able to go through. And I think he's right in the sense that the Raiders do expect to play well in this game. Yeah. I'm curious. Prior to the injuries, I was a lot more nervous about this game. I think it's the same way I talked to the fans who were just confident we were going to destroy the Rams. I'm like, no, this is a good team. The Raiders are better than fans think.
Yeah, it's on the film. And also there's a lot of people out there on the internet that are John Gruden haters because he says some funny things on Monday Night Football. Yeah. I love John Gruden. If I didn't love Sean McDermott so much, he would be the type of football coach that's one of my favorites. And the guys love playing for him. So even he has some of that ability, like Sean McDermott, just to get guys up for games. And what JT said, John Gruden is telling these guys this is a must-win game. The Raiders are going to put it all out on the field. It really is a must-win game for them. They can't go 2-2 and then go to play the Chiefs. That's puts you behind the ball so bad because then I don't want JT to hear this, but you're not going to beat the Chiefs, right? Yeah. And then you're going to be 2-3 and you're behind the chains. You're off schedule, to keep it the football talk, and they just can't afford to stay that way. And so I hate playing desperate teams, man, even when it doesn't match up on paper. I think this is a little closer on paper than fans think, although the injuries, I think, help the Bills quite a bit. Desperate teams drive me nuts. It's something you can't quantify. Teams that know they have to win a game. Bills don't have that right now. I mean, they want to win the game. I'm not saying they're going to go out there and lay an egg. Desperate teams that freaks me out, man.
The Spider 2 Y banana is always funny.
Yeah.
It's something where I think that it's weird. I feel it's flipped all of my expectations and assumptions about the team on its head. I'm really confident the Bills are going to put up points. I think, especially with Damon Arnett going out, having a new corner have to step in with this receiving core. Honestly, with or without John Brown, I would love to have John Brown, but I still feel pretty good that we can survive this secondary with John Brown out. I'd rather be cautious and let his calf heal. I feel a little bit nervous about this running game. They have a monster offensive line. Rodney Hudson and Gabe Jackson are still monsters. If Trent Brown comes back and plays healthy, that makes me a little bit nervous. Josh Jacobs is a stud. I'm nervous about them being able to control the ball, keep it out of our, I can't believe I'm going to say this, high-powered offense's hands, and to try to control the game script and to be able to play keep away. And it's just so foreign for me to think about a Bills strategy going into a game and an opponent trying to keep the ball away from our high-powered offense. But I really think that's their path to try to make this competitive this weekend.
That's definitely the path, especially with the injuries at wide receiver. And I think that a little bit plays to the Bills' ability to maybe be able to play a little bit better on run defense. You don't have to worry about Ruggs taking the top off you if Ruggs is not going.
That's a big one.
Yeah, obviously Brian Edwards is looking like he's out. I mean, you're talking about just Zay Jones, Nelson Aguilar, Hunter Renfrow, which they can do things, but I'm not worried about those guys blowing the top off the defense. So that kind of does give you a little bit of ability to sell out for the run a little bit more. And I think I agree with Leslie Frazier. Yes, the Bills are undersized in the middle. I think that's going to be a problem for them the remainder of the season. But I think the NFL is trending the opposite way of where the Raiders are right now with like the massive offensive linemen plowing forward. So I think more times than not, I'm okay with that. But also where I do agree with Leslie Frazier is it, and they talked about it a lot last year and it became a running joke with the media, is what is gap integrity and all those things. And I really do think though, even with the undersized guys, if they're stressing that this week in practice and they can actually maintain some gap integrity, it's going to be tough because the big guys are going to push you around. But if they can do a better job at that and not worry about the top being taken off the defense, Gruden doesn't do the type of things that Sean McVay does either in the looks that he's going to give this defense and confusing them with run and pass plays. So I think you're going to have a more simplified offense and not the concern of the top being taken off of it. And that might help the Bills be able to somewhat stop that run. I do think I agree with you though. That's the path to victory for the Raiders, and it does scare the crap out of me. But I think the Bills offense, you talked about the high scoring offense. I think they are so explosive. I think they're explosive enough that even if the Raiders come out and eat up time of possession and keep them off the field, I think they can almost match them at every point scoring. So I will take that. In modern NFL, I will take an explosive offense over the ground and pound. The ground and pound is just not back yet. You can win with it, but it's not as likely.
Yeah, and I mean, heck, the Patriots are doing it. The Patriots now 2 games so far this year have dominated a game because they ran the ball 2/3, 70% of the time. And I think JT touched on a good point. Fully healthy, Tyrell Williams is really close to like a Preston Williams, Devontae Parker part.
I wanted him 2 years ago in free agency super bad.
If there's a problem with this secondary, it's somebody that you can't keep up with speed-wise, and Henry Ruggs is the fastest player in the NFL. And that combination would have made me really nervous. That I'm not a huge Derek Carr believer. I think he puts up some hollow numbers in my mind and has I think those checkdowns do inflate his completion percentage, and there's a fair amount of garbage stats in there. But he's had moments, and he has had runs, and I can't lie. That win against New Orleans on Monday night was really impressive. They looked really, really good. So I actually I had money on the Raiders last week against New England, and seeing them get punched in the mouth is tough. And the Patriots really did pull away in the second half. And I think that is going to be something that we see. And you talk about their current receiving core, the guy that's going to play a big role in that, I'm going to use my one of our first sponsors for tonight, T-Shirt University Fresh Look. For anybody who didn't see it, check out Levi Wallace's Twitter page. He put up a post that had like the crazy 360 view of his interception where it literally zoomed in, like you could see it through his eyes to be able to see it. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. The video was amazing. It looked like, cool. It looked like you had a Viewmaster coming out of his face mask.
I saw it. They did that once in the Carolina Stadium. Does that where they showed Cam Newton's view when I went to the Bills Carolina. I wish the Bills would do that more, and that fans had that access to that type of video. Where it's really specifically great is quarterbacks in the pocket. And you see these 6'3", 6'4" linemen just barreling. You see how small and tight those windows are. It's a super cool view.
Yeah, I can't think of a better Fresh Look for our sponsor segment for today. So T-Shirt University Fresh Look. Go out and check out Levi Wallace's Twitter page. It's fantastic. We'll post it in the description of the show here tonight. Just an awesome message. It's pretty slick to be able to see what they do. And I agree. I hope that's something we see more of from the Bills.
To a point, though, about that New England game for the Raiders, when you go back and watch that game, though, I counted 3, maybe 4 interceptions that they just dropped, that the Raiders just dropped, that would have changed the tide of that game in a big way, where Cam Newton threw it into double, triple coverage at times. So yes, that they did come out and establish the run, and they did ultimately have a dominant performance in that game, but I don't know that it was as dominant as it appeared in the end of that game. I think that the Raiders left a lot out there, even when they were unmatched at times in the run game. They just have to execute. And Josh Allen, I think that he can put up a lot of points and yards against the secondary, but their team's going to be coaching them up to come down with those plays this time. He can't be making the plays like Cam Newton does. And Josh has made 2 or 3 of those every game where he puts the ball in a place where a big play can come away from that. So they have some playmakers on that side if they're given the right opportunities. They just didn't take those opportunities last week.
Yeah. Now going into our presenting sponsor, Uncle Jumbo's, and our player spotlight for tonight, it's going to be a big piece of being able to protect Josh Allen in this game. I wanted to touch on the interior line rotation and what we've seen so far. We'll be honest with you guys, Aaron and Eric and I were a little confused when we saw the announcement coming out of Cody Ford starting at left tackle and Quentin Spain sitting and Brian Winters getting more snaps. And that's not exactly what looked like it made the most sense going into the game. And I don't know that anyone was going to have a great game against Aaron Donald, but it looked like an odd decision. So I have to assume that it was reading into and preparing for Feliciano coming back and wanting to see where Cody Ford might fit, if they could do that, or if there was an option on the left side, if Feliciano could be on the right. How did you interpret that move? And it seemed odd to me.
Something's fishy. Yeah. I'm not going to get into any type of speculation that people are, but it just seemed fishy to me. We didn't see any sense of it coming our way, and then you have that type of move happen. They're saying it's specific to the game plan, and I've said it on this show that I'm not against Winters. Like, I think there's a lot of people out there that want him off the team immediately. I'm not that guy. He's fine. I don't know what they saw that made them think that that's a better option than Spain so far. Like, and I'm not big on, I think there's a lot of hype for Spain. I think he's fine. Also, I think some of his stuff was inflated about not giving up sacks on the quarterback. Sure. I think that's a little bit inflated. I don't know that he's the run blocker that people think he is. I think he's a fine guy that could play on this line and play on probably any line in the league.
I think he's slightly better than Cody Ford and Brian Winters.
Sure. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that either. So it's something's fishy about that. Ultimately, I can't wait for Feliciano to come back, and I can't believe that I ever 2 years ago a year ago when we got Feliciano, you would never have heard those words uttered out of my mouth. And I hope that when he does come back, he plays to the level he did last year, because they really do need
his energy
on the interior line.
It's just infectious. His approach to the game, and you can hear. I think that it's funny. McDermott has talked about how hard it is to keep him off of the sideline and out of practice. Like, he wants to be involved in everything. I think it's really exciting. And, other people brought it up here in the chat. For anyone who didn't see, Quentin Spain did delete everything off of his Twitter account. I don't know, I hope that's just an emotional frustration with not playing. And honestly, I think if you look, that might be the first game he's been benched in like 5 years. Yeah. I think he started like every game for a 5-year stretch. And that's probably a hard pill to swallow. That regardless of how Bobby Johnson explained it to him, telling him, hey, we're going to sit you down this game while you're healthy. No one's told him that, honestly, probably since his undrafted rookie season.
And that's where I'm hung up on. It's not so much that they went another direction play-wise. It's that they didn't even try to keep him and utilize him, right? Like, just to not play a guy, especially when you're facing that type of possible interior pressure, to have all hands on deck and use all the hands on deck.
When you had rotated the first 2 games.
You've been rotating this whole time. Like you've done it, you go back to last season on an interior line, but you rotated a year ago. So I would have preferred to see all hands on deck and play out the game as it goes. So that's what really stands out as something fishing me. I'm not going to say that there's going to be a trade happening or what. We don't know. Maybe something happened in practice. Maybe something happened in the meetings and there was some other thing going on behind the scenes. This team's not going to let you know.
Correct.
Right? Like, you're not going to get it out of the media. No sources are going to say something happened behind the scenes. We're not going to get any of that. This could have been disciplinary for all we know. We don't know. They're going to keep that all bottled up tight. So hopefully, though, going forward, we don't see that type of thing, because I don't like what we're getting out of the interior line play very much this year. And this is a game also, when we go back to this game, I think this is a game where they can really establish the run, which we haven't seen a lot. I think there's going to be some of those opportunities here as well, because teams are starting to play back now that Josh Allen's proving that he can put the deep ball together and he can put some of these big yard passes. They don't want to get beat deep, just like the Bills don't. So I think there's going to be opportunities for the run game, but that's going to start with really good interior line play. And I don't know that I've seen enough of it to say we can lean on that.
Yeah, and so we've seen certainly other people speculate that this means there's a trade. I will say I think there is something that occurred that we don't know about. How serious that is, how big of a deal it is, what it is, we don't know. But I do think there's probably something we don't know about. If for some reason Michael Lucas is commenting here about they could get out of it, he did sign a 3-year deal, but honestly, it was more like a 1-year deal, and then let's see. Next year, there's less than $1 million in dead cap hit to move on from him. If they traded him this year, it basically would net out. They would take about $2.9 million in dead cap, $2.85 million in cap savings, so they wouldn't gain any money by trading him, but it wouldn't be painful. So if for some reason, if there was something a little bit more serious that went on that they needed to trade him per se, they could without any real pain. It just wouldn't save them any money to do it. So, we'll see where that goes, and I think we'll know that quickly.
I do. I also think Bills fans are maybe overestimating what his value in a trade would be, because it would have to be him plus picks to get anything that you're going to get excited for, in my opinion. And I like Spain. This is not an indictment of him, but no. A middle of the road interior lineman is not going to. You're not going to get a straight up for Ertz in that deal. I would expect like the Wyatt Teller trade of getting a 5th and a 6th round pick. Maybe because it's Spain, it's a 4th and a 5th instead of a 5th. Sure,
and a 6th.
And maybe a team's desperate enough to up it a little bit.
Correct. So I think some people were throwing that out there because the Eagles have had like 5 offensive linemen hurt. For anybody who's not aware, they just got announced Dallas Goedert broke his ankle. Oh. So the Eagles are not trading Zach Ertz, just an FYI. They just lost.
No, they just took your boy Akeem Butler.
Yeah,
and are making him a tight end. There you go, man.
Yeah, they literally claimed Akeem Butler off the Carolina Panthers practice squad, named him active, and said in the announcement, "Oh yeah, he's a tight end." For anybody who doesn't follow, Daniel Dopp is a guy who's a writer for ESPN and hosts the fantasy show with Matthew Berry. He wrote and said, "This is literally a Madden move. This is what you do in Madden. You take the big, slow wide receiver and say, nope, he's a tight end now, and I'm moving him over here."
Although,
to be fair, the Eagles just made a Madden move midseason.
To be fair, we wanted to see that happen with Duke Williams and just didn't. So they could have taken Duke.
They had the balls to actually do it. Yeah, they actually had the guts to make the move, the Madden move, and do it. So anyways, our Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight tonight is that interior line. I think we're going to know very quickly if something serious or something else is going on with Quinton Spain, because what we saw in the game, they should go back to Spain. From a player standpoint, from an on-the-field standpoint, Quinton Spain should be back in the game on the field this week. And if he's not, I'm going to speculate that means there's something we don't know about that's going on, because neither Winters nor Ford earned more playing time in that game. And that you always have to take a huge grain of salt that Aaron Donald was a piece of that. But even in the snaps that weren't against Aaron Donald, they didn't look awesome. So we'll see where that goes. That interior offensive line is going to be a big piece of this discussion going forward as far as what else we need to watch out for.
Yeah, and thoughts and prayers go to John Feliciano. Get back as fast as possible.
Please. And by the way, he's a hysterical follow on all social media. You guys should. I actually don't follow all the players. I find all the time, like, oh, I didn't realize I didn't follow that guy. Feliciano's funny. Like, he's a really funny follow.
The
on
pettiness of posting the childhood picture of Derek Carr and Elam
that picture that JT the Brick was talking about in the show, that was from Feliciano. Like, he's the one who's been spreading that picture around. And for anybody who's not aware, it's a picture of Derek Carr while he was at Fresno State hosting the Fresno State quarterback camp with a high school thin, really young-looking Josh Allen, like starstruck, standing next to Derek Carr, and Feliciano made it his profile pic on Twitter.
Well, and part of that story is, and this is what JT was talking about, this is what scares me for the Raiders, is Josh Allen has been holding on to this for 6 years, 7 years of his life. This has been fueling him, and we know how motivated of a human being he is, calling schools, sending his tape, somebody come get me.
And by the way, not just sending to school, he grew up in the shadow of Fresno State. Like, Fresno State is the hometown team of where he grew up.
Yes, if you're a kid growing up playing football, your dream is to play there and follow in the footsteps of the Cars, right? And so he goes to this camp, and they put him in they have like the good quarterbacks, and then they put him over with the non-competitive group of quarterbacks. So this has just been sitting in Josh Allen's brain and fueling him for a long time. So there's a chance that he comes out and just beats the crap out of the Raiders just because it just lets it loose. So good on Feliciano I'm sure he's been texting that to Josh daily,
multiple times.
Hung it up in his locker room.
He literally, it's one of the Feliciano's the kind of guy that would have that printed in a poster size thing and like have it in his hotel room when they get to the hotel in Vegas.
Yeah, all week long.
So getting into our final segment here today, I know Aaron and I are very tongue-in-cheek sometimes in giving a hard time to some of the analytics and advanced statistics crowd, but you guys need to know we use them a lot. We look at all of them, and we do pick and choose some of the things when you get into expected numbers and predictive things and grades. It's a little hinky, but a lot of sites have fantastic advanced stats that really tell us a lot, and one that we both like is DVOA. And, we're getting to the point now, 3 weeks in. Why don't you share a little bit about what you've seen?
Yeah, I still am going to trash on analytics on Twitter, so I don't want anyone to get too cozy with me over here. But no, we do use it. And one thing that I use it for is which I encourage our viewers to do, because we can't show the film on this show, and we're not going to do that. But I encourage you to maybe change some of the narratives. You don't get to watch all the games, so sometimes you're just catching highlights or you're catching just the condensed view but take a look at some of the stats, take a look at some of what you're seeing from the team as a body work. Like Greg said, I think we're starting to build up a sample size here. I didn't look at it the first 2 weeks because it doesn't matter. And probably you could make an argument that it still doesn't matter yet. I think once we get through a quarter of the season, it'll be a bigger thing. But so let's dig into it a little bit. So DVOA is one that I kind of like to look at as we're getting ready for the matchup show. I look at it before I look at any film just to kind of get a sense of where a team's at going into the week. Right now, offense DVOA, Bills are 6th. I don't remember saying that on the show. That's pretty cool. No. And the Raiders are 9th, which was better than I anticipated going into this, breaking into the film. Bills defense 24th. I think none of us would have expected that even early in the season. We know defenses are struggling across the league, but the Bills are struggling pretty substantially.
I think there were points last year where we hit second or third in DVOA in defense.
They were top 5 pretty much most of the year. I think they might have slipped to 6th or 7th after a couple bad performances, but never out of the top 10 that I remember in DVOA. Lucky for the Bills with this high-powered offense, Las Vegas right now is 31st in DVOA. And so I do agree with JT that they've left plays on the field. I think they could be better if they capitalize on some of those plays, but 31st is 31st. And when you look at also their points allowed and things like that, there's not a whole lot of evidence that supports that they're much better than that yet. They're going to have to come out and prove it. Special teams, Bills are 11th. Not a lot of opportunities on special teams, which I think helps the punt game a little bit, but I think decreases Roberts. I think Roberts could lift that a little bit more if he had more opportunities, because he's not been talked about enough, in my opinion, by Bills fans and on Twitter. Every time he touches the ball, he's been fantastic this year. He's on pace for another Pro Bowl season, possibly all.
He's averaging 35 yards per kick return.
Yeah, he's doing crazy. He's leading the league in punt returns, or second in punt returns, or something like that on average. So he's doing great. They're 20th in special teams, so I don't know if you want to take anything out of that. Let's flip over to points for and against. Buffalo right now, points for. So remember the conversation a couple years ago when Sean McDermott said we just got to get to 21 points a game. Right now, Bills are averaging 31 points a game.
They're almost doing it at halftime. They're averaging 19.6 yards in the first half per game.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome. But Vegas is right there, 29.3. So the Bills are second. Vegas is 9th. Points allowed, Bills are 16th at 25.7. Vegas is 25th at 30. So that is a nice little piece for the Bills, I think, when you look at the DVOA plus of what they're giving up in points. And then one last thing I want to touch on here, because it's something we talk about all the time, toxic differential, toxic plays. It was a big part of last week that we talked about. And I think, I've seen the chat a couple times here, people talking about check down Carr, and that narrative is true. There's a lot of truth to it. Bill Belichick was double teaming checkdowns in the game. So they
literally were taking away the checkdown as a primary option.
Yes. And I don't think the checkdown's as bad as everybody wants to say. Like, we have a bad vibe because Trent Edwards became captain checkdown and didn't take anything else. But it's a smart play a lot of times for a quarterback like Carr, right?
Drew Brees checkdown to Kamara is their primary option.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady's made a freaking living at a check. They've become one of the greatest quarterbacks ever by doing it. So it's a smart play. There's plays to be made. But Carr is not doing that bad at the 20-plus air yard stuff either. So on offense, the Bills obviously are second in the league. I mean, I think we all suspect that. What's on film, that's no question. But the Raiders are right there at 10th. And that surprised me a little bit, because you think of a check down quarterback. And so I looked into it a little bit. He's got 8 attempts of plus 20 air yards, and he's completed 50%. That's the same rate as Josh Allen's completing. Josh Allen has just done it twice as much, right? So we're getting more, but they're completing those plays at the same rate. Their offensive run, they're tied with us for 11th, and the way Sharp Football stats, I think, is 10-yard plus run. So they're right there with the Bills, and we've seen the Bills rattle off a number of 10-yard runs. So they're 11th overall. Where it gets a little hairy right here, which could be a thing, and I'm not sure, is defensive, which they rank it, if you're first, you're giving up the most, and 32nd, you're giving up the least, right? Bills are 4th in passing toxic plays. Not good, because that's something that they've hung their hat on since McDermott got here.
Not giving up big passing plays is the hallmark of this defense.
Exactly, and that scares me a little bit to see it, kind of that number point out. And the Raiders are 27th in big passing plays. And I don't know, I haven't watched maybe enough film yet to see if it's a lack of being tested on those plays versus just not giving them up, or those plays not being there. But that is something where the Bills are, second in the league, and they're towards the bottom. And there's only one team better right now than the Raiders at giving those plays up. And then on the run defense, Bills are 20. And so they're much better at not giving up the huge runs that we're seeing. They're giving up the 5-6 yards at a clip, but they're not giving up the huge runs, where the Raiders are 6th. So I do think there's some opportunities for Devin Singletary to get out and break out some of those 10, 18-yard runs that we see from him. So those are some of the numbers. Make of them what you will. I think that there's some interesting numbers in there, though, that if you don't get a chance to watch all the film, or if you want to take a look at something specific when you're watching the film, and that's really where I think the film community and the analytics community just need to come together and hug each other and say, we all need each other, man. It all points to the same place.
Yeah, and it's a big piece of being able to do it. And we talk about it all the time. Honestly, we have healthy debates internally on, hey, what can they be used for? What is a good indication? And one of the things Eric often talks about is the statistics, the metrics, the analytics are never going to tell you the whole story of anything, but they can tell you what to go back and look for. They can tell you what to go back and check out, and that, oh, I didn't notice that. Maybe I should go look for those instances or those kind of plays or those kind of setups. So it's certainly the kind of thing that we try to keep in mind as well. Carmen Pagano here was talking about Josh Norman time this week, I hope, at Me Too.
We'll find out something tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I think that once we see whether he practices, that's going to be the biggest indicator is, do we see him practice? Once he practices, the Bills have 21 days to remove him from IR and activate him, or else he goes on the season-long IR. That clock doesn't start until he practices the first time. And that could happen week 4. That could happen week 14. They can do that whenever they want. Him being on the exercise bike last week, I do think that's an indicator for us. I do think that's something that it's likely to see him have a decent shot to practice here. But we'll know for sure tomorrow.
And that's the same for Feliciano, correct? That they both are on that same timeline?
Correct. Technically, yes. I know he threw out there that he wanted to be back for the Raiders game. I don't know. Most people, Kyle Trimble that has banged up Bills, talked about the timeline of that kind of surgery with a torn pec. That would be very aggressive of being back that fast, like absolute perfect world scenario. So I don't know that I expect that back, but yes, he is eligible, and both of them, the same rules apply. As soon as they practice for the first time, they then have 21 days to activate them. I actually expect both of them to practice for a full week before they're activated. So if we see Norman practice tomorrow, I actually think that's a better indicator for the Titans game next week rather than him playing the very first week he practices, because he hasn't practiced for a long time.
Yeah,
he missed the last 3 weeks of training camp practices. And I expect them to give him a little bit of run.
Yeah, and I think that this is a game where you don't have the wide receivers where they can get away. Like, there's no pressure right now to just run him back in, and Bills are going to be conservative. They just are conservative with this type of stuff. So I think this is a good week to say, hey, practice, go through game, like go through what we do for prepping for a game, get all those reps in, and then we'll bring you back from there. Taylor DeGeorge had a question, but I think he's got it flipped here. He says, can the Raider O-line stop the Bills D-line? I'm more worried, can the Bills D-line do anything against the Raiders? I think Jerry Hughes,
Trent Brown's a big one for me. If Trent Brown plays, I'm a lot more nervous. If he's out, I think that, they've been band-aiding it together, and you have their rookie or second-year guy, Colton Miller, playing with Denzel Good. I can't lie. I'm not terribly familiar with Denzel Good. No. Trent Brown's played 3 snaps this season. He is literally the biggest human in the NFL. He's the largest person in the entire league and is a monster, and it didn't play awesome the first year they gave him a ton of money, but last year played really well. And I think that makes a big difference. So if Trent Brown plays, that makes me even more nervous.
Oh yeah, big time. And even if he's not playing, though, I'm still nervous about this interior line, the size of the interior line. I like a lot of the things Ed Oliver's done so far this year, but he's going to be undersized in this matchup. He's going to get pushed around in this matchup. Harrison Phillips graded better than I expected on PFF. I haven't really had a chance this week with the show being today. I've been kind of focused on the Raiders. I haven't really done any self-reflection this week. It's something I really have meant to go back and look at, because the grade stood out to me as isn't what I necessarily saw in the broadcast.
Not in the flashes. Yeah, not in the flashes. And I get it that it's hard. In real time, I don't, the whole take your eye off the ball. It's a fantastic book. It's a great way to learn more about football. It's not what I do in real time. It's not what I do watching the game the first time. When I watch again, I literally do take my eye off the ball. I just watch the offensive defensive line for one whole run through in the condensed version. That's all I watch. Every single snap is who's getting penetration, who's moving, who's making plays. In real time, I can't do that. I have to watch the ball. No. the first. I can't even
watch. Honestly, I can't even watch a whole unit, and that's why I can't do what Eric ever does, where he just. I have to really pick like 2 players a week, and I'll watch all their snaps on the all 22, and I'll write down. I'll watch the condensed film, write down some plays, and go back on the all 22. And I can only watch one player at a time because there's so much to it, and there's so much going on, and there's so much rewatching. So, but to answer that question, I think the Bills D-line really needs to prove to me that they can stop the run and show up this week.
Yeah, Cole Wilkinson asking a good question. Do you see us playing less nickel to stop Jacobs? You yelled at me earlier. I tweeted that we played nickel every single snap of the game. And I said it makes total sense because Taron Johnson's basically our third best linebacker. He's great in run coverage, and just like AJ Klein, he can't cover. He's terrible anytime he's isolated in coverage. So it's basically base defense anyways.
Your point's valid that he's a fine run defender, and I think that they can stay in nickel and still win against the run.
He actually is excellent. Like I don't know other nickelbacks in the NFL, their specific run defense well enough to know if he's the fourth best or the ninth best. I don't know. He's really, really good. He has exceptional instincts, great tackling ability,
and in the screen game.
And great. Sniffing out screens.
Yes, and he's better in coverage. I think he had a rough week. He had a rough week, but he is better in coverage. It's a tough position to play in coverage too. There's a lot of communication that goes along with it, but I do think that they'll be able to stay in base. And the problem with the run is still going to be the undersized line, and it's going to be some of the stuff that we haven't seen from Tremaine Edmonds and even Matt Milano. I think he did some nice things in the run game this week, but they both over pursue. They both get stuck on blocks at times and move along. Milano a little bit less than Edmonds, but Edmonds still does. And I think Leslie Frazier said it, like he made a real effort to play last week, and that maybe he wasn't 100%, but he made a real effort, and that's why we kind of saw him fade in that second half of the game. And getting one game back healthy, hopefully we'll see a better Tremaine Edmonds this game, because they're going to need it to stop the run, and they're going to need all hands on deck.
Yeah, and Nick's right. I steal that from Aaron all the time, him firing his gun. It's fantastic. He just throws his body recklessly into the running back. It's fantastic. And he's actually stayed healthy this year doing that. He's actually had some shoulder issues because he's so aggressive throwing himself in there. But when you guys are checking out cover1.net and joining the Cover One Premium Slack channel, you get the chance to interact with wonderful people like Keith Lango, who graces us with his presence here tonight and asking, what are the chances we see Buffalo Bills legend Nathan Peterman this week? I'm going to say pretty low, but it'd be fun if Ed Oliver, gave Derek Carr a wake-up call. I never wish injury on anyone, but maybe he needed to go out of the game for 2 or 3 snaps, and then we saw a rep from Nathan Peterman.
I don't think we see it, but we're going to see former Bills legend Zay Jones.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that I haven't heard from his dad on Twitter this week or anything.
He has a pound, to get some highlights.
Yeah, to pump up Zay with some highlights. But I think we're going to see a lot of Zay Jones this weekend.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's crazy. Like I said, their initial run where their wide receivers were going to be Tyrell Williams, Henry Ruggs, Brian Edwards, and Hunter Renfrow being 3 and 4 is a huge difference. Now you're missing the top 3, and Hunter Renfrow and Zay Jones are their top 2, and bringing up some other guys. I mean, they've had some guys play limited snaps. Nelson Aguilar is now a big part of their offense, and then beyond that, I don't even honestly know who's next. I think Rico Gafford and Keelan Doss, names like that, are the people that are going to be out there. That's going to be tough to get some production against this.
Waller's going to be there.
Yes.
Their go-to in the passing game, 100%. They're going to get him. And I don't know that the Bills are going to be able to do what Belichick does and totally eliminating a weapon. Belichick's done that for 20 years. I don't know if the Bills are going to be able to.
Last week. He completely shut down Darren Waller last week. Yes. It was crazy. I hope that's, if anything, that Frazier and McDermott take away from that game. None of the rest of their weapons scare us. Take Waller out of this game. He is our biggest concern.
Yeah.
All right, guys, appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun tonight. Hope that you guys enjoyed coming in here. Oh, yes, we need to. Sorry. I'll lead things off with the score prediction.
Running right through.
So I do think the injuries are too much. I will say I was a lot more nervous about this game beforehand. You add in Incognito and all the receivers that are out and all the other pieces. I just don't think the Raiders can keep up, and I don't think that now losing Arnett in the secondary, I think this is one of the better defensive lines we've faced so far, that maybe they can get a little bit of pressure. I just don't think they can keep up. I think that we're going to see, I'm going to say 31-17. I think the Bills pull away towards the end. I think that they're going to be a closer game. I don't think that JT's wrong as far as a close at halftime, but the Bills have jumped out on a lot of teams so far, and I don't think the Raiders have the weapons to catch up if they do.
Dang, I thought so I'm usually like a 3-point prediction, and I have a bigger prediction. I thought I was going to beat you, but you got me. I'm going 31-21. I think the Raiders probably score late, maybe a time or two, and get some. But I don't think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be one of those where it heads into the third, and the Bills are already up 20-something to 3 or 20-something to nothing. I think that I think the defense is going to really try to reestablish itself and take that out on this offense. And then I really think Josh Allen is just going to light the world on fire because he's just got 7 years of pent up car in him.
Yeah, no, honestly, I think we're going to enjoy it that he's going to let out all that frustration. Oh, you think this guy's better than me? You think you're better than me? We're going to get to see that from Josh Allen. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I did get one note from a person that knows somebody that works the Bills games as part of the security. And he said the two people that are just not all game long, just talking, Jerry Hughes and Josh Allen. And he said Josh Allen is the biggest trash talker you've ever seen on the sidelines, just all game long running his mouth. So I think we'll get a lot of that on Sunday.
I love it. And my favorite part is that he's so good at flipping the switch and saying the right things in the press conferences and never giving them 1 ounce of ammo, and then just talking just unbelievable trash when he's on the field. It's a fantastic mix. It makes me so happy.
It's you. It's
really, really similar. It's knowing how to be professional and everything, and then just being just belligerently nasty when it doesn't, when no one's recording it. It's great.
Right.
All right, guys. Appreciate it very much. The chat was awesome as always tonight. Thank you to our sponsors, Uncle Jumbo's, T-Shirt University, Wester Automotive Group. We're so lucky to have them with us here. Hopefully you guys checked out The Hoof last night. Awesome debut episode. Time. Really, really fun. I'm really excited. You guys are going to love Anthony Prohaska. He's our new host of the Disguised coverage starting on Thursday nights. I'm going to have his debut episode this week on Thursday. It's going to be a fantastic run here. We're going to have you guys covered all the way, all through the season. We're going to have multiple shows every single week. Really, really excited for it. Aaron, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me at Aaron Quinn 716. It's up here. You guys know where to find me. I've been on Twitter before. Come get me.
Come back and find him. He did find his Dow Center, but he gave up a lot of that following, and more people should be listening to the goodness that he has out there. You can find me at Greg Tompsett, GregTompsett, having fun, talking back with Bills fans. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.